5 college friends, Michael, Sarah, Ethan, James, and Emily, decided to take a road trip to escape their daily routines. They'd heard whispers of an old mansion that stood abandoned on the outskirts of a small, desolate town. The locals called it the Cursed House, but the friends dismissed these rumors, curious to explore and spend a thrilling night in the supposedly haunted place. It was nearing sunset when they finally found the house. A massive iron gate greeted them, rusted and towering, as though it was daring them to enter. Beyond it, they could see the mansion itself, shrouded in dense fog, looking even more ominous than they had expected. The mansion was covered in dead vines, its windows shattered and hanging by broken hinges. They parked their car outside the gate, stepped out, and took a moment to gather their courage. "This is creepy," Emily whispered, glancing around nervously. "Come on, we didn't drive all the way here to chicken out now," Ethan said, feigning bravado, though his hands shook as he pushed open the iron gate. It creaked, sending a shiver down their spines. The group walked up to the house, and as they reached the front door, James tried the handle. It turned easily, and the door swung open with a loud groan, as if it had been waiting for them. Inside, the mansion was cold and damp, with the faint smell of mold lingering in the air. Their footsteps echoed as they entered, bouncing off the decaying walls covered in faded wallpaper. Shadows danced in the corners, and the wind outside made the windows rattle. They wandered deeper into the house, inspecting each room with a mix of dread and excitement. In one room, a broken chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling, while in another, there was an old, dusty piano, its keys covered in cobwebs. As they moved through the house, Sarah noticed a large portrait hanging on the wall. It depicted a family with cold, lifeless eyes, 2 parents and a young girl, all staring out into the room as if they were alive. "That painting gives me the creeps," she said, shuddering. The eyes seemed to follow them, but they chalked it up to their imaginations running wild. The group finally decided to set up a base in the large living room. They rolled out their sleeping bags, laughing nervously to mask their growing unease. But as night fell, the atmosphere grew heavier, the silence deafening, only broken by occasional creaks and thumps coming from upstairs. To break the tension, Ethan suggested a game. "Let's tell horror stories." The others agreed, though uneasily. They took turns, each story more spine-chilling than the last. But as Michael started his tale, they heard faint footsteps above them. They paused, listening, their hearts pounding. "It's probably just rats," James whispered, but no one seemed convinced. Deciding to investigate, the group climbed the staircase, their flashlights flickering in the dark. As they reached the landing, they noticed a door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway. With a mix of dread and curiosity, they approached it and peeked inside. The room was filled with old furniture covered in white sheets, but the most disturbing part was a circle drawn on the floor with red paint, or perhaps something far worse. Strange symbols were etched into the wood around it. Emily felt her heart race. "This doesn't feel right. I think we should leave." But before anyone could agree, the door suddenly slammed shut behind them, and the lights of their flashlights went out. Panic surged through the group as they banged on the door, trying to open it, but it wouldn't budge. They felt trapped, their breaths shallow and frantic. Then a soft voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." They froze, each one feeling a cold presence close by. It was Sarah who first felt something tugging on her hair. She screamed, and the others joined in, feeling unseen hands gripping their arms and shoulders. The door finally flew open, and they stumbled out into the hallway, racing back to the staircase. But as they reached the bottom, they found themselves in a room they didn't recognize. A narrow corridor with walls lined with mirrors. In each reflection, they saw themselves, but with hollow, dark eyes and twisted, sinister smiles. Michael took a step back, his voice trembling. "We're not alone." Suddenly, the mirrors began to shatter, one by one, each crack sending an icy wave of fear through them. They bolted down the hallway, hoping to find an exit, but every door they tried led to another dark room, each one more disturbing than the last. Some were filled with strange whispers, others with shadows that flickered and moved on their own. The friends began to split up, panicking and rushing in different directions, each one hoping to escape the nightmare. Ethan found himself alone in a narrow room, where he saw the same portrait from before. The family, now staring at him with vicious grins. He turned to leave, but felt a hand grip his shoulder, cold and bony. He spun around to find himself face to face with the little girl from the portrait, her face pale, eyes wide and empty. "Stay with us," she whispered, her voice echoing through the room. Meanwhile, Emily and Sarah were frantically searching for the exit, but each hallway seemed to twist and turn, leading them deeper into the mansion's maze-like corridors. Shadows slithered along the walls, their whispers growing louder, filling their minds with terror. Michael and James found each other in what looked like a basement. The walls were lined with rotting wood, and in the center of the room was a large, ancient coffin. As they approached, they heard scratching sounds from within. The lid began to creak, slowly lifting, revealing a decayed skeletal hand reaching out. They bolted up the stairs, barely able to hold back their screams. After what felt like hours, the friends managed to regroup in the foyer. They were bruised, their faces pale and drawn, but they knew they had to get out. They sprinted for the front door, but as they pulled it open, they were greeted by a thick, impenetrable fog. The gate they'd come through was nowhere in sight. Instead, the yard stretched on, filled with strange, misshapen figures lurking in the mist. Desperate, they ran into the fog, hoping to find an escape, but each step seemed to lead them back to the mansion. The house loomed before them, an eternal trap. They turned only to see the shadowy figures closing in, their hollow eyes and twisted grins reflecting pure malice. The five friends clung to each other, their voices hoarse from screaming, but no one was there to hear. One by one, the figures reached out, dragging them back toward the mansion, their laughter echoing through the night as the fog swallowed them whole. The next morning, the townsfolk noticed that the old mansion's iron gate was open. Some claimed they heard screams in the night, but no one dared to go near. Years passed, and the story of the five friends faded into legend. But those who listened closely at night claimed to hear faint, desperate whispers carried on the wind, pleading for freedom from the cursed house, a chilling reminder of the souls trapped forever within its walls.